Earlier this year, I produced a video on grid trading. It was an expert advisor that ran a standard grid, simply buy and sell at each level in the grid. And I pointed out in that video that the drawback to that type of trading, to grid trading, was that if the price of the instrument you're trading begins to run away in one direction and trend strongly, then you can wind up with a lot of positions open and eventually blow your account because you simply run out of margin or you run out of capital because you have a heavy drawdown. Today I'm going to show you how to write another expert advisor based on a different grid trading strategy. Now this is not my strategy, and on the screen here I have the reference. This is a strategy from a group called Expert Forex, which I saw on YouTube originally, and I have seen several of their videos that go over the same approach. I've only put a link to one of the videos here, and you should see that for a detailed explanation of how this approach works. But what makes this different to the standard grid is that there actually is a stop loss point where if the price moves too far, you get out, and this makes it much more attractive as, I guess, a fail-safe system in case the price begins to trend unexpectedly. Now, I'm not going to go into a detailed description of how this works. I've given the links to their original video and their website, and I'll include the links in the description so you can follow that up for yourself. But I'll give you a quick overview because it will make some sense in terms of what we're doing here. Assuming I have a grid, these particular grids have only 5 levels, the beginning level and then 4 more above or below that. I'm going to describe this just in the sense of the price going up into the buy side. So we begin at some point where we both buy and sell. That's a traditional grid approach. And then we need to wait for the price to move to one of the other levels. The sell side is just the mirror of the buy side, so I'm only going to be looking at the buy side here because that will make it much easier to show on screen. So the first thing that will happen is that the price moves to the next level. Whether it's the sell or the buy level, it will move to the next level. So as I said, we're only looking at the buy side here. So the price moves to the buy side, and then we do what you would normally do for a grid: close the buy trade that was in profit, open a new buy, and open a new sell. So at that point, you've closed one trade in profit. So I've indicated their profit equals 1. Now, from this point, one of two things can happen. The price can continue to go up, or it can come back again. So assuming the price comes back to the original level, at that point in this grid, you close everything. So what you'll have then is the original buy that you closed in profit. Then you'll have the sell that you opened at that next level coming back, and that's another profit. So the profit there is 1 plus 1. The buy that you opened at that second level, though, will be at a loss. So that's the -1. And the sell that you opened originally will close at break even. So that's the +0. So you get a net profit of 1, and you've closed everything out. The grid is completely done. That is the key to this particular grid approach. The retracement closes out the entire grid and you just start again. Now, assuming the price didn't come back and went up to the next level, like so. At this point, we would still close out that buy that's in profit from the first level, and we would open a new buy and then open a new sell. So now we would have 3 sell trades open and 1 buy trade. And at this point, we've closed profit for 2 buy trades that have reached those levels. So we've got profit 1 plus 1. If the price then retraces, we close all at that level number 1. So we begin at level 0, we've gone up to level 2, and now we've come back to level 1, close everything. And so we have 2 buy trades that have already closed in a profit. The sell trade that was opened at level 2 is closing at a profit. So that's 3 profits. We have lost 1 for the buy trade that was opened at level 2. The sell trade that was opened at level 1 has closed at break even because we've come back to that same level where it was opened. And the sell trade that was opened at level 0 is a loss. So we have 3 winning trades and 2 losing trades for a total of 1. So again, there's a profit of 1 just by that retracement coming back. If the price had continued again to level number 3, so 0, 1, 2, 3, then again we close the buy, open a new buy, open a new sell. And that gives us 3 profits to that point. And then if there is a retracement, we'll make another profit of 1 for the sell that is opened at level 3, So that gives us a total profit of 4, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. We will lose 1 for the buy trade that's opened at level 3. We will close the sell opened at level 2 at break even. We'll close the sell opened at level 1 for a loss of 1. And the sell that was opened at level 0 is actually 2 levels out, so that's a -2. So if we go as far as level 3 and come back to level 2, close on, then we close for a profit of 0. Now, I'm saying profit 0 because this is a perfect world diagram. In reality, you have things like commissions and spread that will mean that you have a small loss here. And the profits at the other levels will not be exactly 1 because you'll incur small losses for the spread. But for the diagram, we're going to assume that it's a perfect world. So we close at 0 there. The other thing that could happen, of course, is that the price continues up to level number 4, the final level. And at that point, we still close everything. We'll be closing all of those buy trades on the way up, which will give us profits of 4. But we have the sell trades from levels 0, 1, 2, and 3 that are going to close at a loss. And that gives us a total loss of 6 if we go all the way to that top level. So in summary, if we close through retracement to levels 0 or 1, we'll close with a profit of 1. If we close at a retracement to level 2, we close with profit 0. And if we go all the way up to level 4, then we'll close with a loss of 6. So the loss is much greater than the profits. But what you're looking at here is the probability that that's going to happen. So this is best suited to a ranging market where you set the levels far enough apart that the price is unlikely to reach that 4th level. Now, just to put this a little differently, I've superimposed all of these closes, and assuming that this is a completely random movement, there is a 50% chance of the price coming back and closing on level 0, 25% chance of the price coming back and closing at level 1, 12.5% chance of it closing at level 3, and a 12.5% chance of the price going to level 4. If you add all of those together and multiply the percentages by the profit that you make at each point, it comes out to 0. So assuming this is a completely random system and that the price can have an equal chance of reaching any of these points, then you have a 0 profit. Of course, that is again in a perfect world, and you do have spreads and commissions to worry about. But in the real world, you can often find ranging markets that are unlikely to reach that 4th level. And as long as you don't go to the 4th level, maybe you hit level number or the retracement to level number 2 occasionally, you will be making profits on this as long as the price is staying in a range. It's not ideal, but it is better than having a grid that can run without any checks and simply create enormous drawdowns. So that's the strategy proposed by Expert Forex. Now I'm going to take you through a demonstration. I've already written the expert, so I'll take you through a demonstration of how this operates just through the strategy tester, and then we'll go to the code and see how to write this. Now I've started the strategy tester and I've set the levels close together just for the demonstration here. What you can see is that I have 2 trades opened and they're close together. And the reason they're not at the same level is because of spread. So I simply opened those at the beginning of running the grid. It's opened the buy at the buy price and the sell at the sell price. And that gap will always be there. Also in this expert, I've had it draw lines on the right hand side of the screen. You can see it's showing the next level the price has to reach before it will open another sell, and the next level that it has to reach before opening another buy. And as the strategy says, if we get to that buy level, it will close the buy that's already open and open another buy, and it will also open another sell. And if it goes to the sell level, it will close the sell that's open, open another sell, and open another buy. I've just run this forward a little bit, and in this case the price has come down. When we first open the grid, there is no idea whether the price is going to go up or down. And so we don't have an exit point because we only exit on retracements. So now that this has actually reached that first sell point, the sell at bar has moved down. So if the price comes down further, then we'll open another sell there. I've closed the original sell, that's gone. And now I have this line that says exit at. That's my retracement line. Now I couldn't have the exit at retracement line before I've at least reached one level up or down because I don't know which direction the grid is moving. But now that it's moved down to that first level, according to the rules of the grid, there is no way that the price can go back above the original level without closing out. Now the price has come down even further, created yet another level. My exit at line has moved down one level, so I'll now close on retracement back to level number 1. And I've got a new sell at, which will be level number 3, where I'll sell again. And now, because I have my levels close together, I've actually hit that third level already. At this point, I know that I can only break even at best, or I will lose. I'll just let that go. And there it's closed, and that would have been a break even, although, as I said, with spreads, there's a small loss involved there. And now the grid starts again. I think that's enough of a demonstration to get an idea how this works. So we can move on now to the code and see how I would write that. Right, now I have the editor open with the code. This is the MQL5 editor, but as usual, this code will work for MetaTrader 4 or 5. This does use the framework, and it uses framework 3.06. There's a minor update from 3.05, simply to add the open price on the response to a trade.positionOpen call in MT4. So what I have on screen here initially, this is stoplossgrid.mq4. So this is the file you will compile if you're in MetaTrader 4. And I have stoplossgrid.mq5, which is the file you would compile if you're running MetaTrader 5. Both files are the same. They both have this hash include stoplossgrid.mqh. So that's how I get the common code between MetaTrader 4 and 5. So they're all located under experts, orchard, stop loss grid, and then stop loss grid MQ4, MQ5, MQH, then a framework file, which I'll show you in a moment, and the expert. If I go to stoplossgrid.mqh, the first thing I have here is hash include framework.mqh. So I said I'd show you that. Here it is. Framework.mqh is just a convenient way for me to have a single file here that sets the framework version that I'm going to use by include orchard frameworks framework underscore 3.06 / framework.mqh. And that file then is included in the stoplossgrid.mqh and in the expert, which I show here. So that way both of these files include the same version of the framework. So back to the stoplossgrid.mqh. It's a standard grid. There are very few inputs to have for a grid type trading. In fact, the main input is this input level points, which I'm setting to 0 here just as the default, but you'll need to set that to something for the grid to work. This is the distance in points between levels on the grid. The grids all have 5 levels, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 0 being where we start, and 4 being the ultimate level where everything closes out for that loss. And the general trading info, the order size, which I'm setting to the default of 0, and you'll need to update that if you want this to run. The trade comment just says stop loss grid, and then a magic number, which I'm just setting at 22, 22, 22 for the time being. And then an include of expert.mqh, which is the file where most of the work happens. That expert.mqh is a class, and it is a class called cexpert. So I've declared here cexpert is a pointer to a variable that I've called expert. And then in the onInit function, I set up expert equals new cexpert, and then the inputs are the level points, the order size, trade comment, and magic number. And then I just return the init result from expert. On dinit, because I've created an object, this expert is an object now, I delete that, delete expert, and in onTick, I just call the expert.onTick function. Now this is the expert.mqh file. As I said, hash include framework.mqh. This does use the Orchard framework. If you're not familiar with that, there'll be a link in the description to a series of videos on the framework, and you can download the framework from GitHub. There'll also be a link to that download. It's not included in the GitHub download for this expert, so you'll need to download the framework separately. But the class cexpert, which is used inside this expert, is inheriting public inheritance from cexpert base, which is part of the framework. And some of the functions you'll see in here are actually provided by that base framework. I have no private variables here, but there are some protected. There's the level size, which is obviously just storing the size of that gap between individual levels in the grid. Then there are some working values, which I refer to later as counters. So there's a closing, that's just a Boolean, and then the buy and sell price and the exit price, which you would have seen on screen in the demonstration showing up next to those horizontal lines. And then the level count to tell me how many levels deep we are in the grid. Loop is a function that is called by the onTick function. The onTick function, which we called from, let me find that again, here, expert.onTick. That onTick function is actually inside the expert base, and apart from handling a certain amount of housekeeping and knowing when the markets are open and so on, it will then call the loop function. And so this loop function is where the main body of the work will happen. And then there are some utility functions: reset counters, open grid, close grid, open position, and close position. I'll be going through the code from top to bottom, so there'll be calls made to some of these functions, and it will hopefully make sense when I get to the functions. I think it would be more sensible to do that rather than go to these functions first and then see how they're used. And just for the demonstration, those horizontal lines you saw in the demonstration are produced by this display levels and display level function. So the display levels function actually performs a number of calls to the display level, and this shows each of those lines on screen. I've included them here for the demo, but they actually are not a necessary part of the expert. They're purely cosmetic. And then there is the constructor, which takes the level points and then the order size, trade comment, and magic number. So let's work through this from top to bottom. First, the constructor. And I make a call to the parent, :C expert base, passing the order size, trade comment, and magic. So that calls the parent constructor, and that handles these three values because they're common across most things. And then I just store the level points, but I don't want to store the points. I want to store them as a price gap. So I've got a function called points to double, and that's also in the framework. And I take level points. So points to double will convert level points into a price gap, which I'm then storing in that M level size variable. And then reset counters will reset all of these. Let me show you. All of these working variables will be reset in that one function. And it's used several times. That's why I've put it here as a function rather than individually setting all of those values. And then just minit result equals init succeeded. If I go back again to this stop loss grid.mqh, there's this return expert.init result. So the init result is set by that call here in expert, and that way I'll be returning an init succeeded. There's a destructor, but I have no code there. I have nothing to do in the destructor here. And now the loop, and this is where the main body of the work happens. And I'll have to go later to explain what happens inside each of these functions, just to avoid jumping around in this code too much. The first thing I'm doing, if M closing, so this is one of the working variables. And if M closing, then I call close grid and return. That's because M closing is a flag that I'll be setting inside close grid. And just in case the close is unsuccessful, can't close a particular trade for some reason, this M closing will cause me to keep going back in and attempting to close the grid until it's finally successful. So if I do make a call to close grid, I don't want to just leave one trade behind because I couldn't close it. I want to make sure I close that. So every time we come back into the loop, as long as M closing is set to true, I'm just going to keep trying to close the grid. Next, if there is nothing currently open, so that means I don't have a grid on screen at the moment. I've either just started up the expert or it has just closed down an earlier grid. And in that case, because of the reset counters, both the buy price and the sell price variable will be 0. So if they're both 0, it means I don't have any trades open, and I make a call to open grid. And open grid will simply place both of those trades and set some of the working variables. We'll see that soon. So that takes care of initializing the grid, and then I return immediately because there's nothing more to do until the next iteration through this loop. Now, I want two different prices, because depending whether the price has moved to the high side of the grid or the low side of the grid, I'm looking for the closing price for either buy or sell. So I need both of these. So I want the bid price and the ask price, and I get both of those with symbol info double, passing M symbol, and then either symbol bid or symbol ask. And that gives me the closing price depending whether I'm on the buy side of the grid or the sell side of the grid. Now, from the explanation at the beginning, you'll see that we close the grid whenever the price retreats by one level. and that's where this M exit price comes in. So if M exit price is greater than 0, that means that I have set an exit price. So the reset counters will initially set that to 0, but then as soon as I open one extra level on the grid, I know which direction the grid's moving, and the exit price will be one level behind that. But until then, M exit price is 0. So if M exit price is greater than 0, it means I have reached at least one level of the grid, and I'm looking at the retracement. And then if either the buy price is greater than 0 and the ask is less than the exit price, or the sell price is greater than 0 and the bid is greater than the exit price. Now the reason I'm testing these buy price greater than 0 and sell price greater than 0, when I first open a grid, both of those are set because I don't know which direction the grid's moving. But as soon as I open one level of the grid, only one of these will be set as the next level and the other will be reset to 0. So that way I can tell from buy price or sell price which direction the grid's moving. And so if either of these conditions are true, then that means that I have retreated by one level, and I just call close grid. So just to explain it further, just looking at the buy side, assuming the price has gone up from the starting point on the grid and we've reached at least one level on the grid. As soon as we reach that one level, the M exit price will be given a value, and so it's no longer 0, so that statement becomes true. Also, buy price has a value and sell price will be set to 0 because we've moved up a level. So buy price is greater than 0, and then if the price retreats back past the exit price, then the ask price is less than or equal to exit price, which means this statement is true, and therefore I close the grid. And of course, if we're on the sell side of the grid, then this statement would be true if we retreat by one level. So that takes care of the closing situation on the grid. But now, if we have reached the next level on the grid, so firstly I'm checking buy price is greater than 0. That means that it's either a brand new grid and we don't know the direction yet, or we've already reached one level on the buy side. So if buy price is greater than 0 and bid, which is the closing price for a buy trade, if bid is greater than or equal to the buy price. Now the reason I'm using the closing price, because this is also the open price for a sell. So if bid is greater than or equal to buy price, that means that the price has moved past that next level because buy price will be set to the next level price. And then I change level count, then level count plus plus because I've reached a new level. I set sell price to 0 because if I've reached a buy level, then I'm no longer concerned with sell, and so that basically turns off all consideration of sell after this. If the level count is greater than or equal to 4, now it should never be greater than, but I'm just putting that there to be safe. So if level count's greater than or equal to 4, then we've reached that end point of the grid where I need to close everything and take the loss. So that's a simple call to the close grid. And some optional statements here where if I'm reaching that point, I perhaps don't want to reopen a new grid. So I'm simply saying, I'm going to print a message there saying, I've hit the stop loss, therefore I'm stopping the expert, and then I call expert remove. Now, this is fairly blunt and I haven't put a lot of work into it. It's really just to show what you might want to do, because what I haven't accounted for here is if the close grid doesn't work. So if that close grid doesn't work, there'll still be a trade open. Ideally, I would want this to loop back into the loop function here. And remember, we looked at the beginning here, to loop back in here and keep hitting that close grid until the grid is actually closed before I exit the expert. But that's a bit of extra code and we're going to be running out of time in this video as it is. So just be aware of that, and you might need to set some flags rather than saying close grid. You might need to set a flag saying exiting expert, and as soon as the grid is closed and that is true, then you might want to execute these statements. But if we haven't reached level 4 on the grid, then as the strategy for this grid says, I will close the position for the buy that's already open, because we're going up, so I know I've got to buy from the earlier level. I need to close that. If that close is successful, then I want to also open a new buy with the open position order type buy, and another sell with open position order type sell. And I'm capturing the two prices, the buy price, which is my next level, and I have to modify that a little further. So buy price gives me the price that this order type buy was opened at, and the exit price will also give me the price where the order type sell was opened. Now I'm going to be using these a little further and modifying them again. But I wanted to capture them exactly as they come back from these open positions, because I'm saying if buy price is equal to 0 or exit price is equal to 0, then something went wrong in trying to open these positions. I don't know what it is, but the grid is now in a bad state. And so I'm simply closing it down. Close grid. If both of these are greater than 0, then it means both of these open position statements were successful. And then buy price plus equals level size. So that sets the buy price at the next level of the grid. And then exit price minus equals M level size, which sets the exit price to the previous level. And then this display levels just shows where the new buy and exit levels are. The sell side of the grid is just the mirror image of that. So if sell price is greater than 0, then I've either got a new grid and I haven't set a direction yet, or I've already opened one level at least on the sell side. So this tells me that I'm actually in a selling mode, and ask is less than or equal to M sell price. So M sell price is the next level on the sell side. Same statements as before, but level count plus plus. In this case, I'm set the buy price to 0. So I know that I'm not in a buying mode if I've reached this point. If level count's greater than 4, I close the grid, and here again I have the expert remove statements. Then I attempt to close the position for position type sell. And I'll mention here, close position doesn't close a single trade. It closes everything for this direction of trade. Now, there should only be one trade at a time that I'm closing when I'm moving in that direction on the grid. When I retrace the grid, I'll simply want to close all of the trades for each side. So close position will typically be closing only one trade as we move up the grid, and when we retrace, that same function will close all of the trades for both sides. But once I've closed that position successfully, then I call the open position for the sell price and the exit price. And again, if either of those are 0, then I close the grid because something failed. And then I sell price minus equals M level size to get the new sell level, and exit price plus equals level size, in this case, to get the exit level, and then display levels. And that's the body of the function. So now we'll look at the support functions for this. Reset counters is simple. Just says closing is false and all of the others are 0. So remember, buy price and sell price both equal to 0 means there is no grid open. Exit price will remain at 0 until I've opened at least one extra level on the grid, and level count begins at 0. And then display levels, which, given that all of these values are 0, should actually remove any levels displayed. So display levels also takes care of deleting any levels that don't need to be shown. The open grid function calls reset counters. So I'm beginning with a clean slate, and then I just open a trade in both directions. So the buy price is equal to the open position of an order type buy. If that is 0, then I failed to open the grid on buy, and just in case there is something open, I call close grid. If there's nothing open, this will be no harm, but I just want to make sure it's all clean and then return. And once close grid has been successful, and remember we'll keep re-entering until we do close the grid. Once that's been successful, then the code should fall back into opening the grid again. So in case this fails, I call close grid. And then I set a buy price. So this is a brand new grid, so I'm setting the buy price to the buy price plus level size. Then I do the same for sell. Sell price equals open position. If that didn't work, I'm going to call close grid. And then I also set the sell price. So when a grid is first opened, I have two trades, a buy and a sell trade, and I also have a level price set for both the buy and the sell. And this is the only time that both that buy and sell price are set. As soon as one level is taken out on either side, the opposite side's price will be set to 0. And then display levels. Now the close grid, this is a close of everything. So I'm using this mClosing variable, and I'm calling close position, position type buy, and close position, position type sell. So I'm trying to close both sides. Both of these will return a Boolean. So if close position is successful, that will be true, and that will be true, which means this entire statement is true because there's an and. So I've been successful in buy and sell, and then I have a not. So the internal of this would be true. Once I apply that not, it will be false, so closing will be false. If either of these fails, so for example, if the buy failed, then that would return false. Even if the position type sell is successful, then that would be false and true, which itself is false. Not false is true, so M closing would be true. And then I'm saying if not M closing, so if I've been successful and it's fully closed, then I just reset the counters. But otherwise, M closing will be true, and then you've seen the loop earlier, it will keep coming back in here and attempting to close these positions. The open position statement just takes an order type, and then I need the price where I'm going to be opening that position, and I use the ternary operator for this. So if the type is buy, then I call symbol info double to get the ask price, M symbol, symbol ask. And if the order type is not buy, then I call symbol info double to get the sell price, which is symbol underscore bid. So price is the opening price for the appropriate order type passed in. And then I'm using trade. Now, trade is an object which has been created by the framework, and it takes care of handling trade activities. It actually, in MetaTrader 5, inherits from the trade class that's supplied with MetaTrader 5. In MetaTrader 4, I have created a custom trade class that has just as much code as I need to work at the moment, and I'll be adding to that as the framework grows. So trade.positionOpen will attempt to open a trade for the symbol. M symbol is also a variable maintained by the framework. For the type, the order size, which was passed in from the inputs, price, 0 stop loss, 0 take profit, and the trade comment. That returns a Boolean. So if the trade.positionOpen is successful, then I will be returning a true. And then I have this if statement. If true, then I return trade.resultPrice, which is the price where that trade was actually opened, and may be different to this price if there is some kind of slippage. If the trade.positionOpen is not successful, then I return 0, and that will trigger those statements to say I failed to open a trade and will close the grid. Close position is simple. There is a position closed by type function maintained in the framework for trade object, and I simply call that for the symbol and the type, and I return the result of that. If you're wondering why I'm not passing in the magic number here, the trade object as defined by the trade class that's supplied by MetaTrader 5 doesn't take magic number as an argument, but it does have a property for the magic number. So the framework takes care of setting that magic number property when the trade object is first created. So I don't need to pass magic number to this after that statement. So trade.position closed by type symbol, and type will close all trades for this symbol, that type, and for the magic number that's stored internally in the trade object. And then it returns a Boolean, whether that's successful or not. And that's everything for the actual operation of the expert, but I'll just go through these display levels statements. As I said, they're just here for cosmetic reasons. The display levels function simply makes 3 separate calls to the display level, which handles each one, because the work for each of these is exactly the same. So I've just created a utility function to handle that. And the 3 arguments that I pass in are the name of the object, because all objects on screen must have a unique name. The price, which is the value where I want to show that on the screen vertically, and then some kind of label that I want to display. So here, the display level, there's the name of the object on screen, the value, and that label text. I'm actually creating 2 objects. I'm creating a trend line, which is the horizontal line that you can see, and then I'm creating some text to hold the price and the label here on the screen. So apart from the name, which I'm going to be using for the trend line, I want a name for the text object. So I'm just creating string text name equals name plus underscore text. In case they already exist, I'm just deleting them with these object delete. 0 is the chart number and 0 is the current chart, and then the name and the text name. So I'm deleting both of those objects if they already exist. There's no harm in making these calls if the objects do not exist. You won't get an error. So it will just attempt to clean them up if they're already there. And then I say if value equals 0, return. So if I have no value in the exit price, for example, which I don't when a grid is first opened, then These two statements will take care of deleting the exit price line, and this will return, so it simply won't show on screen. So this will only show things that have a value greater than 0. I need 2 times because the trend line needs a start and end point. So I'm just getting time 0, which is using the iTime function for the symbol, the time frame, and bar number 0, and then I'm getting the same for bar number 1. So that gives me 2 points. Then I call object create. 0 is the chart number, current chart. Name is the object name for my line, which has been passed in here. I'm creating an obj_trend line. It's on subchart 0, which is the main chart. I'm beginning the line at time 1 and value and extending it to time 0 and value. So because both of these values are the same, it's a horizontal line and it has a width of only 1 bar. But then I'm going to extend that later with this object set integer, obj_prop ray right true, which causes it to extend all the way to the right hand side of the screen. I'm also making sure it's visible by setting with object set integer obj_prop hidden, setting that to false, and then I'm just making sure it's yellow so it's easy to see. Object set integer color yellow. For the text, very similar. Object create chart 0, but this time using text name for the name of that object. It's an obj_text. Subchart 0. I only need one set of parameters for the position, time 0 and value. And then I do the same. Obj_prop hidden is false. I set the text of that text item with this object set string, obj_prop_text, and I'm using string format, text plus %f, and value is used to insert in that %f. And then object set integer for color yellow again. So that's all there is to the display level. Now let me just make sure I haven't made a mistake. I'll go back to the stoplossgrid.mq5, hit the compile button, and that was successful. And we've already seen the demonstration on this at the beginning of the code. So this code is available on GitHub. There will be a link in the description and also on our website to the GitHub for this expert. The expert itself uses the framework. The framework is in a different GitHub repository, and there will also be a link in the description for that GitHub repository. Hope you found this useful. If you did, then click the like button. And if you want to see more of our videos, click subscribe and then click the bell icon to be notified next time we release a video. Thank you for watching.